From the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha, consider this with Cathy Wyatt, a program of issues and information behind today's news.
Yeah. Sis boom ba.
Sis boom ba.
Describe the sound made when a sheep explodes.
Hi everyone, I'm Cathy Wyatt. Welcome to the 29th season and this week's edition of Consider This. Our topic, the Great American Comedy Festival. Joining us to talk more about it is Pat Janssen. Pat is the GACF's Executive Director. In addition, we have three guests joining us via Zoom. We will begin the conversation with Pat and Austen Hagood. Austen is President and CEO of the Norfolk Area Chamber of Commerce. Later in this program, we'll hear from well-known improviser, filmmaker, and teacher Brian James O'Connell, and actor-comedian Tommy Bechtold. Wow, what an opening. I want your comments on that clip.
Wow, as someone who's worked in comedy a bunch of years, who's been around comedy, and someone who just grew up as a human, you can't help but just enjoy the comedy of Johnny Carson. There's a reason that we honor him in Norfolk every year.
Yeah, tell us about Johnny Carson.
So Johnny Carson obviously was a Norfolk native, one of a couple famous ones. If you think of Thurl Ravenscroft, the voice of Tony the Tiger, he was a Norfolk High graduate as well. He really has set the tone for what Norfolk is today, because he is the famous homegrown son of Norfolk. He came back several times, continued to be very philanthropic toward Norfolk and just Northeast Nebraska in general. There's a reason that we honor him. His fingerprints are all over that part of the state.
He is known as one of the greatest comedians. For viewers who may be watching not as familiar with Johnny Carson, what do you think made him so great?
Well, first, there was sort of an everyman quality to him that was very relatable. That Midwestern sort of personality is what made him who he was, but also the fact that he was such a king and queen maker in the comedy scene on The Tonight Show, when there was such a market share that was still watching late night programming. And if he decided that you were the next big thing in comedy, you were. If you could make it on his show, suddenly your career was made. And that level of cultural cachet, I don't know that we'll ever find anything like that again.
Wow. Austen, I want to bring you into the conversation here. We're going to start by asking you to talk with our viewers about, and we're going to put up a map too, what makes Norfolk so special?
Well, I would say first and foremost, the thing that makes it so special are the people. That's what we always hear, is it's the people make it great. And I think Johnny being from here and it being his hometown and his foundation still taking care of our community continues to keep it great. And it was just a draw to it, especially with the comedy scene. And for a while, I was heavily involved in the comedy festival and booking talent, and I would talk to these huge A-listers that would say, well, I don't love the 2-hour drive from the airport, but for Johnny, I'd be happy to come out for the weekend. And I heard that countless times, which I thought was just awesome.
So Austen, I want to back up a little bit, because before this festival, you were like any other town, and you had an annual event. What was that like?
It wasn't really tied to Johnny Carson, really. It was just, there was a group of people before my time that kind of sat around a table, and somebody had gone to a comedy show and thought, well, our hometown hero really was, like Pat was saying, the king and queen maker. Why don't we honor him and everything he's done in his career and done back for the town of Norfolk, and start a comedy festival? And that's really kind of how it started, was just a group of local people wanting to thank Johnny.
Well, and you make it sound so simple. This was back in 2008. It really, though, takes a lot of people, a lot of collaborative spirit to bring something like this to light. I mean, if we go back, what is that, almost 20 years, right? Talk to us about what was happening at that time in your town and what it really would take to bring something like this to light.
It took a lot of willing people that believed in the idea. And of course, it took some cash, and everyone that got involved said, well, I'll put up a little bit of money. And we've got great local banks here, and they all supported it. And the whole town really got behind it. And after the first or second year, we started getting people reaching out saying, hey, can I come to this? And which made it even easier to secure big name headliners, and now it's an event that draws from multiple states, not just communities outside of Norfolk, but I mean, we have 5 or 6, 7 states that will travel here to see the show.
Wow. Pat, what is the vision of this festival?
Well, I think the vision is certainly to honor the legacy of Johnny Carson. You think of the comedians who we've had here, and we've got a lot of the people who were on Johnny's Tonight Show, or at the very least would honor the spirit of someone who Johnny would have on his show, whether that's a Yakov Smirnoff, or someone like Vicki Lawrence or the Smothers Brothers. But then we also like to honor, again, that idea of the up-and-coming comic, because he was such a supporter of young comedians and helping make their careers. We've had a lot of comedians who have come through here who maybe weren't famous at the time but have gone on to become famous, like Taylor Tomlinson or Aparna Sharla. These are people who have made really, really good names for themselves, but people didn't know them when they came into Norfolk. So we want to honor that sort of like dual-edged spirit of what Johnny saw for comedy as we bring people in here. But the other part of it too is, so Johnny's first performance was not as a comedian, it was as a magician. So we also like to honor that spirit with a comedy magic show that's really geared toward families. It gives a little bit of every type of spirit of comedy and a little bit of Johnny within all of that.
Wow. All right. So we've talked about him, the theater. We're going to put up some graphics for our viewers. And as we're doing that, tell us about the Johnny Carson Theater. So
I love the capacity of it because it's really easy for me to remember. 1,234 people. So Johnny, we mentioned his philanthropic efforts. A big part of that was this just world-class theater. And interestingly enough, it's connected to Norfolk Senior High School. So people come in, they're doing a world-class show in a world-class venue, and they're connected to a place where they teach history and math as well. We've gotten a few jokes out of that from some of the comedians who come through, but it really, really is just a first-rate facility. For anybody who goes to the State One Act Championships every year, it's held right there in that facility. And then one of our board members, Tim Miller, is the person who manages that facility now, and we're really, really lucky to have him. He's been part of the festival for a long time, and he himself is a world-class theater technical director. And it takes a lot of people like Tim or like Austen or just any number of people who are part of the volunteer board, just doing things and doing it because they love it. And that's why we're able to have this festival every year.
Wow, and you mentioned earlier some of the folks who have graced you with their presence in this theater. We're gonna put up some photos for our viewers. I'm sure they're gonna recognize many, if not all of these people. But talk a little bit more about, I mean, as we're looking at these people that we do all recognize, my goodness, what are you thinking when you see that?
Well, and some of these people were from before my time when I was living in New York and LA before moving back to Nebraska. The first one I remember was the Smothers Brothers. That was my first year as part of the festival. Then we had Vicki Lawrence, and I'll say Austen booked both of those two people. And then we had Yakov last year. And I think it was fun too because we had that sort of combination that I was talking about where we had Yakov as kind of that comedy legend, and then we had James Austin Johnson, who's in the current cast of Saturday Night Live as our Friday headliner. So we got that chance to really hit a bunch of different audiences, because I know my in-laws loved Yakov and my wife loved James, and so you get a little something for everybody.
Well, we talk about what those folks do for the audience, but I'm curious, what does Norfolk do for them? So they come in one way, but they leave having been exposed to this, this town, and I guess I'm just curious as to their reaction and what they walk away with.
Yeah, so I say it all the time that this is a cultural exchange program, and I think it's really important too. Austen talked about that we have people who maybe have to take 2 flights into Omaha, and then we're picking them up in Omaha and bringing them 2 hours north to Norfolk. We have to give them a good time because comedians talk to other comedians, and if they didn't enjoy themselves, we'd have a really, really hard time booking this festival, because it's such a high degree of difficulty to bring people into Norfolk. So yeah, we try and give them a full experience to where they really enjoy themselves. They're enjoying Norfolk, sort of the folksiness of Nebraska. We take them we have a lunch at Johnny Carson's boyhood home. One of our board members owns Johnny's home, and so we take them there. They get to shoot hoops in Johnny's driveway. They get to see the different parts of Norfolk. We take them out. We take them on tractors, which for some of them that may be the first and only time they've ever been driven a tractor or a combine. We try and just make it a fun experience for them all the way around. We're not just pitching to an audience, we're pitching to the performers as well.
What a cool connection. That is really, okay, Austen, we're gonna bring you back because I do want to ask this question, especially after hearing Pat talk so much about this. The benefits, I mean, some to Norfolk, some are obvious, maybe some not so obvious, but as you walk away from this event every year thinking, okay, Norfolk is a better place now because of this festival, talk with our viewers about the benefits of something like this.
The benefits are incredible. I would really, when you look at our population size and our location, I don't think there's many towns that are on the same platform that we are that bring in world-class entertainment that you could see in Vegas or LA every summer, which I think kind of really sets us apart as far as quality of life for people that live in and around the area. But the financial benefit of it is when we bring in thousands of people over this really 2.5 days, the community sees about $250,000 invested back into it, and so those numbers are huge. On Friday and Saturday, out of state people and out of town people, when they stay here, we're looking at 1 in 4 hotel rooms is taken by a patron of the Great American Comedy Festival. So financially, it's fantastic for the community, and just on a national scale, it's great for our town because a lot of these guys, they will write bits based around Norfolk. So I'll be scrolling on TikTok or Instagram or something like that, and I'll hear this comedian that is now famous be like, so I went to a comedy festival in Norfolk, Nebraska. So it's great word of mouth advertising for our community.
I want to ask you, because it is small town, right? And they're doing something really, really big. I can't even imagine the energy around there prior to an event like this. And I think those of us who just kind of show up think, oh, this is, it's all been done for us, but it takes an awful lot of work. And I would imagine that plays into community spirit quite a bit, and people really look forward to it and then miss it until it's back around, right?
Oh yeah, it's huge, and it just we used to when we put them up in the hotels, we keep them for the weekend. And I was talking with Dave Coulier, who is Uncle Joey on Full House, and there was an out-of-town wedding that didn't even know about the comedy festival. And this guy walked in, and he's like, "Hey, are you Uncle Joey for Full House?" And so they got to talking. He's like, "Well, that was weird." Well, the next night I was with Paul Reiser in the same lobby. Same guy walks by, and he's like, "What is going on in this town tonight?" So there's been, it's just there's a lot of buzz, and everyone who's been here has been really great about going to different restaurants and kind of hanging out in the community and meeting the people that live here. So it's been really it's always an exciting weekend.
Awesome, thank you. Austen Hagood with the Chamber there. I want to thank you so much for joining us today and for being part of this discussion, and obviously wish you and the rest of the community the best with this event.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thanks for having me on.
You bet. All right, Pat. Let's talk about 2026.
Sure.
Okay. So I was, looking through the events that are happening, but you obviously have a much better handle. Give us a snapshot. What's important for us to know about this year?
Well, so we're following basically a lot of the same format that we normally do. We have 3 world-class magicians for that Thursday night at the theater, which I think is such an underrated piece of the festival. We have a former magician from the festival named Ben Seidman, who we lean on to help us with the booking for the magic show, because I've worked a lot in comedy. I have not worked in magic. I have to lean on Ben so hard, and he just curates such a fantastic show that you'd be lucky to see in a place like Vegas. And so we've got David Kovacs, we've got Juliana Chen, and we've got the Evasons. All 3 very different
Awesome.
magicians performing on that Thursday. The Friday theater show at the Johnny Carson Theater will actually be improv. And so we've got one of our guests who will be opening, Brian James O'Connell. He'll be doing a one-man improv show. And then Bluebird has 4 of the most acclaimed improvisers in the world. Matt Walsh, who was on Veep, Mark Evan Jackson, who was on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Joe Canale, who's a dear friend of mine. He's actually, believe it or not, a Husker football fan. And then Brad Morris, who's been in virtually every TV show, it feels like. And then I was taking some students to New York recently, and we saw him on a show on the airline TVs. I was like, oh, he's coming to Norfolk soon. But so improv is such an important art form in comedy. It feels kind of ludicrous to not honor that. So we'll have that on Friday. And then Saturday, so we're running out of the people who've been on Johnny's show. There are just only so many of them left. But we wanted to honor the spirit of Johnny with that Saturday show. So a fellow by the name of Charlie Barons, who is just massive online. His following is crazy. Well, he's a Midwestern person himself. He's from Wisconsin, and he really leans into that Midwestern piece with a lot of his comedy. And so, when we're thinking about Midwestern boy going off and becoming one of the biggest things in comedy, that feels like such an obvious parallel, but just kind of within a new generation of that. So Charlie is going to be our headliner, and we've got again, some great comedians who will be opening for him. And then we've also got a few shows outside of the theater. We're going to have a regional showcase on the 17th. That's just been added with a bunch of comedians from the region. And then we always have our late night bar show on Friday. So that'll be Friday the 19th of June. And that's the one show where people don't work network clean. So again, we think about that idea of a little bit of something for everybody, and we get a little bit of that different vibe for that show too.
Wow, okay, that sounds fantastic. And we do have 2 performers here with us. So Brian James O'Connell and Tommy Bechtold are both going to be joining us here via Zoom. I want Brian to talk with you first. This word improvisation, by the way, welcome.
Thank you for having me so
You
much.
bet.
I really appreciate it.
You bet. This word improvisation, we throw it around quite a bit, but I want you to explain in your own words what it really means.
That's a very good question. A lot of times we use the word improvisation or improv interchangeably with like ad lib or riff and those kind of things. I think the sort of shorthand to remember is that if someone does something that changes the outcome of the story, that's improvisation. If someone says something funny that wasn't originally written, that's an ad lib. And that's how you kind of sort of take it different. I personally believe it's our job is to replicate recognizable human behavior so the audience recognizes themselves and then reveals that revelation through the form of laughter so we can all have a longer discussion and deeper transaction of ideas on how to heal the world and be better neighbors.
And before we take a look at a video, we have one of you, but I want to ask you, so many roads you could have taken here. Why improv for you?
Again, I live in Los Angeles, California. I'm from a small town myself, High Point, North Carolina, furniture capital of the world. And one of the main things that I've learned was a phrase that someone told me early on that said, there's no one right way. There's no right one path that everyone has to take. I got very lucky that I found improvisation sort of late in the day. I didn't find it until I was 27. And just that sense of I had played in team sports, I had been in bands. It had all the sort of communal, collective, let's all put on a show and take care of each other sort of thing. And it's the one thing I found out of all the different stuff that I've done is being a filmmaker, being a lead singer in a band, being a traveling athlete, is that it's the concept that you are enough, that you're irreplaceable. If you don't bring what you got and who you are as a person to the stage, we won't be able to replace it. Van Halen had 3 singers. There's only one you, Cap.
Oh, I have to say, did you say 27 was late in the game, Brian?
For a person who wants to be a professional entertainer, yes.
Okay.
One of my dear friends, Ann Crimmins, she goes by Crim. She started in her 60s and she's in her 70s now. Fantastic improviser, and she's a teacher. I love her to death. There's never too late to start improv.
Awesome. Let us take a look at you in action.
Oh, no.
So anyway, I'm gonna go party for like a month, man. I cannot wait to get back to the Imperial Planet. It is gonna be great. You were totally invited to the party, by the way, but if you're gonna bring that sourpuss attitude, then you can just kick it right here on Dagobah, which you clearly like for some reason. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm a family man. I've started several families this year alone.
I believe in equal rights, through and through.
So do I. Kill them all, let God sort them out. That's what I say. Hey, yeah, can you do me a favor? Can you go across the street and get me a 6-pack of Coors Light and a pint of blackberry brandy? That'd be awesome. Did I stutter?
Well, I'll give you a ride, but you're gonna have to ride in the back, man. Up front's where I keep my ham.
Are you serious?
And quick side note, sing any song in the style of Michael McDonald, and it's immediately like 1,000 times better. Like, oops, I did it again. I'll play with your heart.
Would you mind taking our picture? It's our first time in LA, and gosh darn, we would just love something for the scrapbook. Yeah, all right. Well, thank you.
Yeah. I'm Fred Wiggins.
Hi, Fred.
17 years ago, I took my shirt off and killed a kid in the woods.
Wow.
All right, so we're going to go from Brian James O'Connell, right? And we'll get back to you to Tommy Bechtold. All right, so let's bring Tommy in now. Hey, Tommy, how you doing? Welcome.
Hi. Hello, how are you?
I know, I'm thinking this is a comedy show. Of course we're going to laugh, right? So that was awesome. Now, Tommy, I want to ask you, because I would imagine some viewers are looking at you thinking, this guy kind of looks familiar. You're going to be involved in this show in Norfolk, but tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. I grew up in Rochester, New York, just outside of Buffalo, and I moved to Los Angeles when I was 22 years old. I had originally gone to LA because I had worked as a set carpenter building and constructing film commercial sets, and I thought maybe I would get work doing that. But I accidentally found myself at a comedy theater one night, and I met people like Brian, who became one of my oldest, dearest friends, and found myself building less and doing more improv and stand-up and sketch comedy, and that kind of turned into somewhat of an acting career.
Well, I was looking at some of your credits. The Middle was one of them, and that's a show familiar to me. What are a few of the other things that we would have seen you do?
Sure. I was on Abbott Elementary. I was on Glee. What else? I was on a show called Hunters on Amazon Prime. And I actually had for a few years, I was appearing on Jimmy Kimmel Live in sketches late night. So I do have an attachment to the late night genre. All right. Which makes this exciting.
All right. We want to take a look at you in action now, Tommy.
The Reaper is a hooded skeleton with no discernible facial features. He doesn't kill people. He comes to collect their souls, which he pops with his scythe before he escorts them to death. Also, when I put my name on something in the fridge, it means it's mine.
Would you be all right taking some questions from the audience? Any rules?
No Star Wars
no
questions.
Star Wars questions?
I can't.
Okay, all right, yeah, real problem. I think we have, we have a gentleman right there. Yes.
Are you hungry?
Are you hungry?
No, not really.
Do we have,
Thank you.
We are Legion. We do not forgive, and we do not forget.
Hey, sweetie. Hot Pockets.
Mom, get out of here!
With your internet friends.
Stop it!
I'll put them right here. The pepperoni, your favorite.
Thank you.
I love my little guy.
Oh my God, Mom, why are you doing this?
Don't bite your tongue.
I won't!
Oh my goodness. All right, Tommy, so briefly tell us, what is your role in this festival then?
Yes, I am very excited to be performing in that late night bar show Pat was talking about earlier. And then the following evening in the gala show, I will be taking the hosting duties, which I love to do. That's my favorite thing in the world to do in comedy.
Okay, wonderful. I want to put the two of these gentlemen side by side, if we could, please, Tommy and Brian. Now, Brian, you're going to do this improv show, all improv, right?
Yes.
In like 30 seconds, tell us, how do you prepare for that?
Oh, well, one of my nicknames in the improv community is the library. I have a brain that does not work well, and I have an unconscionable amount of music, film, comedy, and pop culture trivia just swirling in here like that big trash heap in the middle of the Chinese Sea. So what I do to prepare for this is I just have lots of long conversations by myself in a small locked room. I'm not doing a bit. That's exactly what I do. And then I just sort of filter out the good bits and stick them in the back of my brain. So when the moment comes up, it goes, oh, here's all that submarine lingo I remembered 5 years ago. This will be helpful.
Wow. All right. So we have about a minute remaining. What does it mean to the two of you who are now friends to be coming to Nebraska? You each get 30 seconds. Good luck. Tommy, we'll start with you.
Well, first things, when I prepare for a show, I check on my friend Brian, who's been talking to himself for a long time before the show, and make sure that he's okay. What it means to me is that I get to spend a few days with close friends and meet some new friends and hopefully make some people laugh, which for me is probably the best way I could ever spend my time. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity.
You did great on time. Brian, go.
Excellent. I'm so happy to be coming to the birthplace of Johnny Carson because I grew up on Carson. I grew up Bill Hicks, George Carlin, and those guys. If you got asked to come over to the couch, that's someone I knew was somebody who was important to pay attention to. And I've been so fortunate that there are so many of my friends and mentors and peers that work in late night television now, like Amber Ruffin and Brian Stack and Kevin Dorff and Opus Mameshi, that I'm just so happy to come and give back to the thing that has given so much to the world, which is Johnny and the late night comedy.
Brian James O'Connell, Tommy Bechtold, thank you so much for joining us, talking about the Great American Comedy Festival today. We wish you two the very best. And Pat, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
You bet. Thanks to our students who are working so hard behind the scenes. And of course, to all of you for watching. We'll see you next week.
Consider This is an issues and information program produced by UNO Television in the School of Communication. More information and program archives can be found at nebraskapublicmedia.org/considerthis. If you'd like to share your comments about this program, call the UNO School of Communication at 402-554-2600 during regular business hours. Or send an email to cwyatt@unomaha.edu.